Alright, this is Numbers 25 in the MacArthur Study Bible. A little refresher of 24. So 24, Balaam gave his final two prophecies, and he prophesied about Jesus, basically. And, of course, Balak was not happy that Balaam continued to bless Israel, and he said, I said I would greatly honor you, but in fact the Lord has kept you back from honor. Yep, and then Balaam gives the fourth one, and he basically prophesies the downfall of some of the surrounding nations, and then eventually even Moab's downfall. Yep, and then of course ultimately, Jesus Christ ultimately. Yeah, but then Balaam ends up, going his way, and Balak leaves. Yep, so Balaam basically was unsuccessful in cursing Israel. Yeah, but the story continues in 25, and things are going to get pretty bad. Alright, so chapter 25, harlotry, Israel's harlotry in Moab. And this is a pretty short chapter, so I'm going to go ahead and read the whole thing. So now Israel remained in Achaia Grove, and the people began to commit harlotry with the women of Moab. And they invited the people to sacrifice to the sacrifices of their gods. And the people ate, and they bowed down to their gods. And so Israel was joined to Baal of Peor, and the anger of the Lord was aroused against Israel. And then the Lord said to Moses, "Take all the leaders of the people and hang the offenders before the Lord out in the sun, that the fierce anger of the Lord may turn away from Israel." And so Moses said to the judges of Israel, "Every one of you kill his men who were joined to Baal of Peor." And indeed, one of the children of Israel came and presented to his brethren a Midianite woman in the sight of Moses and in the sight of all the congregation of the children of Israel, who were weeping at the door of the tabernacle of meeting. Now when Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron the priest, who's already dead at this point, so Phinehas saw it, he rose from among the congregation, and he took his javelin in his hand, and he went after the man of Israel into the tent, and thrust them both through, the man of Israel and the woman through her body. And so the plague was stopped among the children of Israel. Those who died in the plague were 24,000. And then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron the priest, has turned back my wrath from the children of Israel, because he was zealous with my zeal among them, so that I did not consume the children of Israel in my zeal. Therefore I say, Behold, I give to him my covenant of peace, and it shall be to him and his descendants after him a covenant of an everlasting priesthood, because he was zealous for his God, and made atonement for the children of Israel." Now the name of the Israelite who was killed with the Midianite woman, that Israelite man, was Zimri, the son of Zalu, a leader of a father's house among the Simeonites. And the name of the Midianite woman who was killed was Cosbi, the daughter of Zur. He was the head of the people of a father's house in Midian. And then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Harass the Midianites and attack them, for they harassed you with their schemes, by which they seduced you in the matter of Peor, and in the matter of Cosbi, the daughter of the leader of Midian, their sister, who was killed in the day of the plague because of Peor." Alright, well that's all of 25. Yeah, not a very pleasant chapter. Oh boy. So, what do we got going on here? So basically, this is Israel's final failure just before the conquest of Canaan, occurred in the plains of Moab. Before the conquest of Canaan, this final failure occurred in the plains of Moab, which of course that conquest is talked about in Joshua. And then I know I've mentioned this before, but it's going to get mentioned again. And then ultimately, when I get to the chapter, Lord willing, Numbers 31, verse 16, you find out that this tragedy happened at the council of Balaam. Failing to be able to curse Israel, he gave the Moabites and the Midianites direction in how to provoke the Lord's anger against his people. So ultimately, Balaam was not able to curse Israel with his words, but, as revealed later, he actually does it with his actions, getting these pagan women to seduce the Israelites. And so basically Israel ends up cursing themselves as a result. But Balaam helped set that up, so he's responsible, and he'll be judged as a result coming up in 31. Even though the Lord did not want him to curse the people. And he probably got paid maybe after this happened. Well, he didn't. Well, if he did, ultimately, if he did get paid after this, even though it doesn't say, well, he didn't enjoy it very long, that's for sure. So was it really worth it? So, where were the people at when this happened? So Israel, they were at Achaia Grove. And this is the region across the Jordan River from Jericho. Where Israel invaded the land of Canaan. So just right across from Jericho on the other side of the Jordan River. Okay. But basically there, they commit harlotry with the women of Moab. And probably sexual immorality, and probably prostitution, and of course idolatry, since usually those things would go hand in hand. So they joined to Baal of Peor. So Israel engaged in acts of sexual immorality with the women of Moab. And since this was part of the pagan cult that was worshipped by the Moabites, the Israelites joined in those idolatrous practices. Pretty much the sexual immorality that goes along with it. The Israelites yanked themselves to the false god of the Moabites and the Midianites, referred to as Baal of Peor. And of course this is a violation of the first commandment, you shall have no other gods before me. And of course don't make a carved image. That's the second commandment. And interestingly, I think whenever Balaam actually gives a prophecy or whatever, I think he's actually at this place. I think he's at Baal of Peor. Whenever Balak takes Balaam and brings him up to the high places of Baal, I don't know if it could have been the same place or not. Maybe so. Well, if it was, then, the Lord basically ended up blessing, the people. But sadly, I guess sadly now, this is ultimately how the people end up responding. So, very interesting. Alright, and then verse 6, one of the children of Israel came and presented to his brethren a Midianite woman in the sight of Moses and in the sight of all the congregation of the children of Israel who were weeping at the door of the tabernacle. Yep, so this guy who gets named later on, he ends up having sex with this Midianite woman. And then, of course, the priest, well, who would end up being priest, Phineas, the grandson of Aaron, he sees this and he puts a stop to it. He basically pierces them through with the javelin. Probably as they were right in the middle of the act, it looks like. But whenever he does that, God stops the plague that broke out because of their idolatry and, disobedience, sexual immorality. And then, of course, Moses told the judges of Israel, and some of the other leaders, to take out those who joined themselves with Baal. I guess participated in the sexual immorality, and of course the idolatry. So both. Take those people out, it looks like. And all the people that died in the plague were 24,000. Now, this plague is to be differentiated from the plague over the golden calf incident, where you had 23,000 die in Exodus 32, and that's also mentioned in 1 Corinthians 10 as well. Alright. But anyway, the people die in judgment. 24,000, that's a lot of people. And then, of course, Moses has these other leaders take out those who've committed the evil act. Just like he had the Levites, take out the people in the golden calf incident. Alright, but the Lord ultimately puts a stop to the plague because of Phineas's zeal for righteousness and stopping that immoral act that he saw. And because of that, the Lord makes a covenant of an everlasting priesthood with Phineas, so that through his family would come all future legitimate high priests. And this promise will even extend into the millennial kingdom. Of course, not everybody believes in a literal 1,000 years, but anyway. And then, I like what it says right here in verse 13. He was zealous for his God, and he made atonement for the people of Israel. How? Because he ultimately ended up, in his zeal for righteousness, for stopping a sinful act, putting an end to it, and ultimately God was pleased with him putting an end to a sinful act. That in a way basically made atonement, because the wrath of God stopped after putting a stop to that sinful act. And then, of course, Phineas would ultimately be a picture of Christ. Where ultimately he made atonement for our sin by suffering the wrath of God instead of us, even though we deserve the wrath just like these people, because we pretty much have done the same thing. We're sexually immoral and we're idolatrous. So, we deserve a similar type plague like this. And we deserve to be taken out. But Jesus ultimately stands in our place and takes the punishment on himself, making atonement there. And he will ultimately put an end to sin. And he is ultimately the one who is zealous for the Lord. So Phineas is like a picture of that there. Yep. And so the names of those two people who got taken out by Phineas, the guy, his name was Zimri, and then the name of the woman was named Cosby. And Zimri was a part of the tribe of Simeon, which, by the way, is going to have a very low number in the next chapter whenever the second census of the people is taken. And I wonder if maybe that could, and maybe the reason for that is probably because maybe a lot of them died in this plague. So, maybe so. So, yep. And this Cosby woman, yeah, she was a Midianite woman. Yep. The daughter of a guy named Zer, who was the head of the people of the father's house in Midian. Yep, and ultimately, because the Midianites attacked Israel by their schemes of sexual and idolatrous seduction, at the council of Balaam, the Lord called Israel to attack them in return. And ultimately that's going to be talked about in Numbers 31. So stay tuned. Yeah, and Balaam is also going to get it as well. Yep. Well, that's pretty much the end of 15, but there's a little extra bonus at the end from Jude 11 when talking about false teachers and they get compared to Balaam. They have run greedily in the error of Balaam for profit. Yep. And of course, a little review. Balaam devised a plan for Balak, in order to get his financial reward, because he didn't get it by because he ultimately didn't get it with his words, because he blessed instead of cursed. But in order to still get that reward, Balaam devised a plan for Balak, the king of Moab, to entice Israel into a compromising situation with idolatry and immorality, which would bring God's own judgment on his own people. Yep, and that's exactly what happened. Yep. And again, he probably got paid maybe after this happened. Probably so, but it would be very short-lived. Yep, and was it really worth it? I don't think so. Yep. But of course, you love shameful gain. You'll be willing to do anything for that gain, even if it means losing your own soul. The love of money is definitely the root of all kinds of evil, and this, given those notes, that would definitely show. Yep. Well, pretty short. So that's the end of 25, and Lord willing, I'll see what Prager has to say next time. But until then, may God bless you in the grace and mercy won by Jesus, the love of God, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with you all.